All right, so today we're going to dive into a really fascinating chapter of film history.
Okay.
The Shaw Brothers Film Company.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a name.
Absolutely.
If you were in Hong Kong, you knew who they were
Mm-hmm.
for decades.
For decades.
And really, their influence stretched way beyond just Hong Kong itself.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a really great collection of notes and reflections to help us kind of guide our deep dive today.
Looking forward to it.
Now, to really understand them, we got to go back
Sure.
to the founders. Run and Run Me Shaw.
Yeah, I think
I mean, these are...
they were true entrepreneurial forces, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, just incredible visionaries.
Yeah, and particularly Run, I think, was the real driving force
Right.
behind this studio. And, he really did shape the landscape of Chinese language film in a way
Oh, absolutely.
that few others did.
And the thing that I find so remarkable is just the sheer volume of films that they put out.
It's amazing, isn't it?
I mean, we're talking about between 1958 and 1985.
Right.
Nearly 1,000 films.
Yes.
And primarily genre films.
Yeah.
Dubbed in Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
That captivated audiences not just in Hong Kong, but across Southeast Asia.
Across Southeast Asia, worldwide, really,
That's-
for people who love a certain kind of cinema.
Yeah.
The Shaw Brothers were the place to go.
So when we talk about genre films, let's break that down a little bit.
Sure.
What were they known for?
Well, they really did cover the spectrum.
Okay.
You had those, very visually stunning Huangmei opera films.
Right.
Lots of action-packed martial arts movies.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about in more detail, of course, because, that's what they're really known for.
Absolutely.
But you also have some very compelling art house productions.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh.
Some chilling horror flicks even, and some stylish spy thrillers.
Wow. So they really
A real mix.
ran the gamut.
They did, yeah.
Now, in thinking about the people that worked there,
Mm-hmm.
The directors that honed their craft at Shaw Brothers during the 60s and 70s,
This is a golden age.
I mean, legendary names.
Oh, it's incredible, isn't it?
We're talking about Tao Xin, Yu Feng Li, Hanxiang, King Hu,
Yes.
Chang Cheh, Kui Chi Hung, He Menghua Chu, Yuan Luozhen.
All these greats.
These were the trendsetters.
Absolutely. They defined the look, the feel, the style of Hong Kong cinema for,
Wow.
for decades, really.
So let's start with those Huangmei opera films.
Okay, sure.
You mentioned them briefly.
Yeah.
These were really interesting, right?
Well, they were a real unique blend, weren't they?
Yeah.
Of traditional Chinese opera with, that singing and the elaborate costumes
Oh.
and, very dramatic storytelling.
Oh, yeah. Big emotions.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of drama.
Yeah.
And the Shaw Brothers really excelled in this genre.
They did.
And I'm looking at my notes here.
Yeah.
Some classics like The Kingdom and the Beauty, Diao Chan, The Love Attorney, The Lotus Lamb, Yang Guifei.
Yeah, all these classics,
Yeah.
And I think The Love Attorney was really one of the
Really?
most popular of all.
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
And you can't talk about Huangmei opera films without
Yeah.
talking about Li Li.
Oh, Li Li, she was a legend.
A true star.
A huge part of their initial success, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
That appeal that she had with audiences,
Yeah.
it was undeniable.
Yeah.
She just had that
Charisma.
that star quality.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So now you also mentioned art films.
I did, yeah.
Let's talk about those a little bit.
Yeah, so these were perhaps a little less mainstream,
Okay.
but films like Tao Qian's Unending Love
Yeah.
really demonstrated,
Yeah.
I think, their artistic range.
Their versatility as a studio.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, they were willing to experiment
Yeah.
with different genres and different styles. And, Unending Love is a real
Sick.
classic example of that. Yeah,
But, for a lot of people, when they think Shaw Brothers,
Yeah.
they think martial arts films.
they do.
And it's hard to overstate their impact
Oh, it's huge.
on this genre.
Yeah.
I think King Hu was such a
Yeah.
visionary
He
director.
really was ahead of his time, wasn't he?
Yeah, and his early work, like Come Drink With Me and The Drunken Swordsman,
Yes.
showed a fresh approach.
Yeah, a whole new way of looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you've got Chang Cheh, of course, who really focused
Yes.
on those themes of male camaraderie and, often quite tragic outcomes
Right.
in his films. And The One-Armed Swordsman
A classic.
is a real classic example of that. Yeah.
And then Chor Yuan
Yeah.
with his more fantastical wuxia style.
Yeah, those kind of
Like Wire Fu.
wire fu, exactly.
The butterfly sword.
Yeah, the butterfly sword is fantastic.
It's a great example.
It is, yeah.
Yu Feng's The Bell Tolls for Death.
Yes, another classic.
I mean, these are just a few examples of the diversity of the
It's amazing.
martial arts films that they...
The different approaches that they took to the genre. It's remarkable.
And what's fascinating is they really created a new visual language.
Yes, they did.
For martial arts on screen.
Oh, yeah.
And that went on to influence action cinema.
Absolutely.
Globally.
Yeah, I mean, you see those influences even today, don't you?
Yeah, you really do.
In action films from all over the world.
Now, one thing that I found interesting that some observers have noted is that Shaw Brothers' primary focus seemed to be on overseas Chinese audiences.
Right.
And maybe this meant that they didn't always deeply engage with the very specific local Hong Kong customs and spatial perspectives in the same way that some later studios did.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point.
Like Golden Harvest and Cinema City.
Yeah.
You know, they had a more contemporary and realistic style.
Yeah, and I think that also reflects, Hong Kong's own evolving identity, doesn't it?
Exactly. And as the economy grew in the 70s, there was this stronger desire for stories that reflected the local experience.
Absolutely.
And perhaps Shaw Brothers, with its established formulas, found it harder to adapt.
Yeah, perhaps they were a little too stuck in their ways.
Yeah.
A little too set in their, the things that had made them successful.
Right.
And maybe weren't quite as quick to adapt to the changing landscape.
And this eventually played a role in their decision to stop production in 1985.
It did, yeah, sadly.
But these films, these cinematic treasures weren't lost.
No, thankfully not.
Thankfully. In 2004, Celestial Pictures made this huge investment to restore a vast library.
It's a fantastic thing.
Of Shaw Brothers films.
Yeah.
So many of the classics that we can see today are a direct result of these restoration efforts.
They are, yeah. It's fantastic news for film fans.
It really is.
And, it ensures that these culturally significant works remain accessible for, new generations.
Yes.
People who perhaps, wouldn't have had the chance to see them otherwise.
It's wonderful. When you look back at the legacy of the Shaw Brothers Film Company, it's hard to deny their impact.
It is. It's indelible.
It's indelible.
On cinema.
Not just in Hong Kong, but really throughout
the Chinese-speaking world.
Chinese-speaking world.
Absolutely.
I mean, the sheer volume.
The volume's incredible.
Of their films and the variety of genres that they explored.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's really remarkable.
Yeah.
And I guess it raises a question for our listeners,
Yeah.
With so many of these films now restored, what do you think are the aspects of Shaw Brothers filmmaking that continue to resonate?
Yeah. What still speaks to us?
With today's audiences.
All these years later.
Yeah.
What is it about those films that still feels fresh?
Yeah.
And exciting?
And what can modern filmmakers learn from their extensive back catalog?
Even though the industry has changed so much, those fundamental principles of storytelling, of visual spectacle, of, creating compelling characters. Those are all things that the Shaw Brothers did so well.
Yeah.
And I think those are lessons that are still relevant.
Absolutely.
Oh.
So there you have it. Another deep dive.
Another one.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
On the Deep Dive.
Bye.